Hi, and welcome to this restorative sequence focused on sinking in and slowing down. For today, I'm going to be offering this whole sequence with a lot of props. And so you can get creative in the house if you don't have exact yoga props to support you. Otherwise, you can try and find variations of the poses that don't require the support underneath. It's just a really great way to allow yourself to melt in without holding on to any tension, because that's the whole idea and concept behind restorative, is to completely relax the muscles. And so the key props I would suggest for today are 2 yoga blocks or something quite similar, and then 2 bolsters. I have 2 different sizes of bolsters with me, but you can have 2 of the same size, or really sturdy supportive pillows. You can probably go with a softer and a harder one if you don't have 2 that are as sturdy as bolsters. And then any other little pillows, you can bring them nearby in case you need some additional support. Also, a towel is really handy, or a blanket that's folded up. You can play with that. And our first pose today, we'll be setting up our blocks. So you take the middle height and bring it in line with the short edge of your mat, and then you take the low height and bring it in line with the long edge of the mat. Then you find your sturdiest, biggest bolster and place it right over top. So it should feel really firm, and you shouldn't feel like there's going to be any dips as you lie onto this bolster. And a couple different options here. You can take your towel underneath if you feel like this arc is going to be too much for your low back. So what we'll be doing is turning on and resting onto the bolster. For me, I like to play with that arc, so I'm going to set this aside for myself. And then you find your other bolster and sneak it right there. Then settle your seat right in front of the bolster. You want your low back pressing up against it, and then you melt your spine straight along. So hopefully your bolster is long enough. Make sure your head is really supported. And then take the feet out to the side and drop the knees in. And so if you have a little bolster like me to start, it may not be doing very much for this first pose, but you want it there settled for the next pose that we move into. So let your feet drop all the way to the edges of the mat, the knees kiss. And turn the palms to face up. Feel the openness through the chest simply by arriving on your bolster. Let the low back, let the rib cage, let the shoulder blades and the head all root themselves into the support below you. And close the eyes and steady into your breath. Feel the inhales and exhales moving through the nose without trying to change the pace of your breath, the rhythm of your breath. Just take a moment to observe how your body is moving itself, how it is filling and how it is expending air. And notice how with every exhale, your back body sinks down a little bit more. You can start to deepen your breath, inhaling slowly and exhaling to match. Let the lips touch really gently. Keep a space between the teeth and rest the tongue on the top palate of your mouth. And feel the breath move in and out through the nostrils. cooling of the inhale, the warmth of the exhale. And as you slow down the breath, keep sinking in. We're sinking into this state of the present, this state of sitting and being with the body, of feeling into every sensation that we notice. At the same time, we're trying to turn off the connection of the brain when it comes to labeling or figuring out. So I was just listening to this podcast called Liberated Body, and it was talking about embodiment and how in order to embody, we really need to not be thinking about being in the body too hard. We want to just notice the feelings that arise. And we don't want to interpret those. We don't need to interpret those. Sometimes what we need to do is let the mind go. Let it soften. Let it sink in to this present moment. And restorative is really the act of doing nothing with intention. Walk your feet in towards one another until the soles of the feet come together and the knees drop wide. And so this is where that bolster underneath comes into play. Let your knees rest down alongside it. If you don't have a bolster, you can stack blocks or pillows underneath the knees so that you don't really feel the effort of the adductors stretching through the inside of your thighs, your abductors activating through the outside. And try to plug the big toe mounds together and then root the outer edges into the floor. And let everything be soft, let everything sink in. Palms stay facing up. As you breathe, see if you can send more space through the heart center. Feel the collarbones drawing away as they slide off the sides of your bolster, your support. And notice if you're gripping through the abdomen or through the low back. Send a friendly reminder that it's okay to release. Also send a reminder to the mind that it's okay to slow down. To slow down your movement and to slow down the thoughts. And the head stays neutral. Find a really comfortable place for the back of your head so that your neck is long. And with the eyes closed, try to lighten through the eyelids. At the same time, feel the eyeballs really heavy in their sockets, dropping down. Release any holding through the face, particularly through the forehead, the cheeks, and the jaw. Smoothen out the creases at the ends of the eyes. And the furrows between the eyebrows. The wrinkles between the nose and the top of the upper eye or lip. And keep observing the body. Right to left, up and down. As it continues to pour into the floor. You set your foundation through the back body to open up through the front. We'll find our hands to the outsides of our thighs. Use our hands to support our soles of the feet to the floor as the knees ride up. And we'll start to roll ourselves over to our right side and rise up. And sneak this bottom bolster out of the way. You may want to get rid of the support underneath if you had a towel there. And take your right thigh up towards the bolster. Bring the thigh parallel to the short edge of your mat. And take your shin, bring it parallel to the long edge of your mat. And take your left thigh, bring it parallel to the shin. Left shin in line with the right thigh. So you're creating two 90-degree angles with your legs. And you may need to shift and shimmy as you adjust yourself into this pose. Coming into a supported 90-90 twist. So root down through the fingers, rise up through the back of the head, plug down through the right sit bone. Find as much length as you can through the spine, and then turn your gaze, turn your chest all the way over the bolster. And start to lower your way down with your arms. Let the right cheek settle onto the bolster. Do your best to keep your legs exactly as is. Your left knee may want to start lifting. See if you can keep it plugged down, and if you find it's floating, tuck that towel underneath so that it has lots of space to rest. And then I like to bring my arms wide so that my elbows can flap down, almost like a cactus arms. And send your left shoulder towards the floor and your right shoulder out. Find small adjustments with the body so that you can fully settle in. And send the top of the head away from the right sit bone. Surrender here. Sink in. Knowing that as we transition through the poses, it may take some time to find the depth, to find that place that allows you to move in and feel into a stretch, but also stay quite passive in the body. And allow for small adjustments, but also invite stillness. close the eyes. Tune into the feelings of your body. And keep sinking down through the left shoulder. And notice if the mind is thinking about whether you're doing this right or wrong. Try to detach from that desire to label. And simply feel into your body. You notice how the longer your hands rest on the floor, the softer they are, the more they start to almost feel like one with the floor. Though your hands in the floor are a cloud, it's floating, connected. You may find a similar sensation with the right cheek on the support below. Press into the hands to ease your way up. Let the left hand sweep back to the left. Take your right hand over to the right. And a few slow windshield wipers back and forth with the knees. Keep the feet really wide apart. Hands can come behind you, slight opening through the chest. And then you'll drop over to the left. Settle into the same pose on this side. And take your time as you move. Set up through the spine first. Let yourself feel really grounded through that left sit bone. We'll find your legs evenly in line with one another, the left shin and the right thigh. And then your left thigh and your right shin are also on this same track. Gradually twist through the abdomen, through the torso. And glide down onto your support. Turn left cheek to rest. Adjust the arms so that they can sink in. No effort supporting you up. Surrendering down. As we hold, gravity supports us in this movement of sinking. Spread the fingers really wide. Release any gripping through the fingertips. Feel into the back of the hands. See if that helps you soften through the front of the hands. And notice the connection between the hands and the floor, between the left cheek and your support. And release through the right inner thigh. Let the right shoulder drop down as the left shoulder glides toward the left. Maybe lifts up slightly so that your chest can plant down onto your support. And this should feel easy through the body, but sometimes stillness and silence is not easy on the mind. It likes to be active, it likes to be doing. See if you can use this time on the mat, this practice, to encourage a sense of stillness in your thoughts. To accept and maybe even appreciate silence. Can you feel the movement of the chest with the breath? A rising and a sinking. Notice if it's sped up since the last time you checked in. Encouraging it to slow down. We root through the hands. Rise up. Turn back forward. Take a few more windshield wipers to neutralize. Don't rush through these movements. Feel into the edges. Breathe through the hips. Once you feel even through the sides, I'm taking my smaller bolster, sneaking it right beside my right hip. Take your larger bolster out towards the right. Set your blocks aside. Actually, you may want to take one block and prop it up right at the top of your mat. In the middle, somewhere near the middle. And you may want your towel to rest right there. And find your right leg bent into a 90-degree angle in line with the bolster. And take your other bolster and stack it on top. You'll lower it down, sweep the right arm out towards the right, and then stack your left leg directly on top of the right leg. And the head settles down onto your towel. You can also curl it in slightly to support underneath the neck so that you feel a complete release through the head. And then your left arm can either rest alongside you with the elbow reaching up, or you can reach back for your block. Let the palm be really heavy and adjust it so that your biceps, the inner arms, are in line with the ear. Your right palm faces up, so you're making an L shape through the arms. And try your best to stack the left hip directly over top of the right hip. And sink in. Make sure that the bolster underneath the side body isn't underneath the right hip. It's supporting under the rib cage. Mainly that space between the hips and the lower ribs. Feel your breath move through the left side body. And clench through the fingers. And grasp through the toes. Feel your body the same way you feel your feet when you bury them into the sand. This sense of sinking while supported. The sand wraps around you, offering warmth, comfort. If at any point the left arm starts to tingle or feel numb, just drop it back down in front of you. You can tent onto those fingers. You can just release the hand onto whatever you're using as a pillow, or rest the hand on the belly. Send the left shoulder slightly back. And drop that top hand down if it isn't already. And kick your feet back. Try to turn that bottom bolster so that it's coming in the same line as the short edge of your mat. And take this slowly so that you aren't feeling any tension through the ribs. You'll adjust yourself onto your back with this top support coming right underneath the shoulder blades. So if you feel like your ribs are really popping up, find something that's not as high. And find something to support the head as well, just to take away from the curve of the back. If you feel like you want to go deeper, you can release whatever's behind your head. And the arms come wide and out alongside you. Feel a really nice opening through mid-back and through the rib cage. And the knees rest over top of that bottom bolster. You can send the feet really wide. Keep sinking the shoulder blades down towards the floor. Soften through the throat and the neck. Notice if your teeth or your lips have clenched. Can you return to that soft kiss of the lips and that separation of the teeth? The tongue returning to the top palate. You may want to explore cactus with the arms, so bending the knees to 90 degrees. Feel back of hands release down. Spread the fingers nice and wide. And this time as you settle into slowing down, notice what arises in that space between the eyebrows, the third eye. With your eyes closed, maybe it's lights, maybe it's colors, perhaps it's shapes, figures, images, maybe words. And try not to attach on to whatever comes up, but allow it to keep moving as though you're looking at one of those slideshows where you just click and it goes to the next one and the next, like a projector. Maybe some of the same images, the same shapes, the same colors keep returning. Notice that. Observe that, and then try to keep moving. Reflecting on the patterns without discernment, without trying to understand why. The hands sweep over to the left side as you lean onto your left hip. Transition to the twist on this side. So adjust that towel so that it stacks underneath the head. You find your bolster snug up towards the left hip. But you want that space so that your bolster isn't underneath the hip. It's just above it. You can stack your other bolster between the legs. Knees come evenly on top of each other. Same as that right hip. And I like to tuck my towel so that my neck feels really supported. And my left arm reaches out, palm faces up. Right hand can reach overhead to a block. Palm faces down. Adjust the block so that the shoulder is in line with the ear. And the arm sweeps over the head, that same angle. As you sink into this side, feeling the sensations. Noting if it's similar or different to the other. Perhaps you feel an area more intensely than you did on the other. Perhaps this feels easeful. Perhaps you know where you're going and so you can sink in right away. Or you may be resisting. What can you do to soften? Does slowing the breath down help? Releasing or setting an intention of releasing the gripping of your muscles help? Feel the whole weight of your left arm releasing down into the floor. Breathe through side body. Fill through the rib cage, particularly on the right. Sending breath into the spaces between each bone. And remember that this shouldn't feel like work. We are settling into ease, and so if it feels like a lot for that top arm, return it back down, tap the fingers down, elbow can stack up, hand can come onto whatever you're using as a pillow, or the hand can rest on the belly, and the elbow relaxes back, shoulder opens slightly. Maybe you start to notice patterns of resistance. Notice what comes up in the moments that you're trying to sink in and trying to slow down. If you're asking why, try to ask why with a sense of curiosity rather than judgment. Without a sense of expectation, without a sense of thinking that you need a result, that you need an answer. Just keep melting yourself down into that pile of sand. Right hand releases down to the floor. This time, you press down through the right hand to rise yourself up into a tabletop as you sneak that bolster out from between the thighs. Take a few cat-cows here. So come into wrists stacking underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, tuck through the toes. Inhale, drop the bellies and the chest forward. Exhale, tuck through the chin, look towards belly as you round the spine. 2 more each direction. As we did with the windshield wipers, neutralizing through the spine, neutralizing through the pelvis. Then come back into center. We'll find a variation of child's pose that works well for us today. So play with as many or as few props as you like. I'm going to take my little one lengthwise and my big one underneath my seat. So untucking through the toes, walk my knees wide, toes together, and sneak this bolster underneath the chest and come forward. So this is one option. You can turn one cheek to the side if it feels better than having the forehead straight down. Or you can release that bolster and bring something between the knees. Keep the knees in line with the heels and sink down. Might feel good to take the other bolster over the forehead. And the shoulders can settle back or they can reach forward. And they can come onto a towel as I am here. Or if the floor feels better, you can move that out of the way. You might find you prefer nothing underneath the legs and you just want a little bit of support underneath the chest. I also really like this feeling of taking my hands on top of a bolster and letting my head go. There are many more options, so find whichever one is speaking best to you right now, in this moment, in this state of being. allow yourself to go there. Feel the movement at the belly. Let yourself sink in. Maybe as you hold, you notice that you no longer need a certain support. Maybe you may find the opposite, that there's an area of your body that could be comforted by some cushion. Find lots of length from the tailbone to the top of the head, from the base of the spine to the base of the skull. Release through the backs of your feet. Know that if this feels like too much of a stretch for your ankle, you can always have toes tucked as well if that feels better. You may need to adjust your supports a little bit if you come into the toe tuck. As your forehead presses into the floor, into a support, can you visualize being on a beach? And visualize the impression that the forehead would have if it were pressing into sand. Every exhale, maybe that impression grounds a little bit deeper. Hands come underneath the shoulders. You rise up. And just arrive tall on your seat. Find something in between the legs if you don't already have a support there. Take your hands onto your thighs, close the eyes. Tuck the chin in, send the shoulders back over the hips, and the ears over the shoulders. Let your seat sink down as the top of your head lifts up. Notice the opening through the chest, the expansiveness of the ribs. Maybe your whole body feels really light, as if it's floating in space, detached from the legs. Can you find a balance between that lightness and rootedness, rounding down through the shins and through the seat? As you sink in here, feeling a sense of oneness with the environment around you. Maybe the hands start to feel as if they're not connected to the thighs. They're just floating, or they're one with the thighs rather than separate. And we walk our fingers ahead of us to sweep onto our seat and settle our way into Shavasana, our final resting pose. Today I'll offer it with a bolster underneath the knees, but you can choose. If you like a little more depth through the low back, you can release that bolster. And just bring your hands alongside you, palms face up. Settle the sit bones, the low back, the sacrum, the base of the spine down into the floor. Press into your head to walk your shoulder blades underneath your back and soften through the toes. Spread the feet really wide. And melt the back body down into the floor. Scan through left side and right side. See if you notice any areas of stickiness or any continued holding. You can acknowledge these in two different ways. The first one is to send the breath there. Maybe place a hand on that area. Really focus in. The other option is to find a place that feels great, that feels like it's settled, feels like it's soft and open, and focus all your attention there. And once you've explored either or both options, try to explore the action of inaction. Just letting the body arrive as is, stay as is, allowing for fluctuations in the stillness. As gravity keeps sinking you downward. And the pause hopefully keeps slowing down the gripping, the need to do. Send a lengthy breath down through the low back and spread it out through to the sides of the hips. You take a few more there if that felt really good. Just releasing through the place that grounds us, our center of gravity. Our point of stability. And try not to hold through the abdomen. Feel the breath rise up and sink down. As the shoulder blades sink down, feel the lightness through your chest. Collarbones gliding away from one another. Back of the hands and fingers soft. And while it's often easier or seems easier to overcome by doing, to avoid through action, sometimes the simple act of sinking in and slowing down, residing in stillness, can offer space for clarity. At the very least, offer space for coming back into this state of being. Grounding us through our body. Rather than remaining detached to our bodies and 100% floating in our minds. Continuous stream of consciousness that, while is a miracle in itself, can sometimes cause conflict, cloudiness, congestion. And stay here for as long as you need. We'll find an inhale together. Exhale, sigh through the mouth. Inhale, gratitude for showing up on your mat. And exhale, setting an intention to slow down through your day, to cultivate time for stillness, so that your mind can recalibrate, so that all that doing can clear and allow for true intentions to arise. So that you have the time to recognize and sit with the sense of oneness with the environment around you. Every breath that you breathe in, you're soaking in new elements. Every breath you breathe out, you're sharing parts of yourself with the world around you. They're really cycles rather than contained objects. From my heart to yours. These videos are made through love and hard work. Your contributions allow me to keep sharing new content with you. If you're able to give back financially, please click the Make a Donation button on the homepage of this channel. You're also welcome to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest video offerings. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Don't be Kona!